Welcome, everyone. I'm Joe Noriel, president of the museum. So happy to see you all today. Very special exhibition we have going on. It's actually called Sentinels, which you'll kind of see around you is the artwork of Mike Dowdle. Mike was a Vietnam veteran, and this art is just incredibly captivating. It's charcoal art, and it's very therapeutic for him. So working on this, he was really able to do a lot for himself, and now presently this particular exhibit is going around different vets locations. So a very meaningful exhibit, and we're so happy to be able to host this. I want to recognize a couple people in the audience, if I could, a couple friends of the museum. Art Cater, World War II, and Dick Sharke back there, Vietnam and Korea. Thank you guys so much for your support.
Hi. Thank you.
This particular exhibition, you know, we've done a lot of different speaker series from World War II to Vietnam, and I was talking to Liz Cohey over there, our director of Good Works, and you know, it just really kind of dawned on me, you know, these stories are all so amazing. We're so happy to be able to document these through PCA and just to keep these oral histories alive. But, you know, I was thinking, these stories, as opposed to some of these other World War II and those type of things, these are fresh. These are, you know, right now. And, you know, how wonderful would it have been to talk to that, you know, Vietnam vet right off the boat, or that World War II guy, just for his experiences that he just recently shared. So we're really honored that, you know, we were able to capture these particular oral histories. With that, thank you so much for coming. It's always an amazing opportunity to be able to share all these wonderful things with the community. So our speakers today, very important speakers. Tawnya Sharke. SFC Tawnya Sharke is a senior operating room NCO for the 352nd Combat Support Hospital out of Camp Parks, California. She began her deployment process early February of 2011 and was stationed at FOB Salerno, Afghanistan from March to December 2011. While she was there, the NCOIC of the operating room for the FOB's hospital. She has been in the Army Reserves for almost 14 years. And with Tawnya, we've actually got a double lineup today, is Matthew L. Jensen. Matthew L. Jensen has served in both the United States Marine Corps for 2 tours in Iraq, multiple counterterrorism in Southeast Asia, and as a humanitarian aid missions for tsunami victims of Sri Lanka. After his Marine Corps career, he joined the Army National Guard and deployed back to Iraq. He did convoy security missions. Matthew L. Jensen now resides in Santa Rosa, California, with a great support system from his family and other vets in the local area, and VA doctors and staff. He's a political science major at SRJC and hopes of one day working with the VA locally, making sure all vets get the care that they need. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Joe said, I'm Sergeant First Class Sharke, and I'm born and bred from Petaluma, so that's why I'm here. My grandpa is Dick Sharke, the Vietnam and Korea vet that you see sitting behind you, which is part of the reason why I joined the military. So I know there was a lot of acronyms in that little bio that he gave you. So for those of you who don't know, non-commissioned officer, that's what I am. I'm an E7, and the non-commissioned officer in charge is what the NCOIC stands for. So that's what I was of the operating room. These pictures up here are actually mine. So if there's any questions on any of the pictures that you see coming up here, you guys feel free to ask as it's going on. If you have any questions while I'm talking, please feel free to raise your hand at the time. I'm not the wait for the end kind of person. I like to keep it fresh. So any questions, just let me know. So as he said, I've been in the military for almost 14 years now, and I've been pretty much a part of the 352 for all of that. And the 352nd is a combat support hospital. That is our job, is to go out there and support the infantrymen, the convoy ops guys, everybody else that's out there. We basically are there just to help them out. That's our job. So when I joined the military, I actually joined to be military police. That didn't work out so well. I was kind of little, and they weren't really happy with that. So they offered me any job I wanted, and the one job that they offered was a surgical assistant. I didn't even know what that was, but it sounded kind of fun at 17, so I was like, yeah, why not? So I chose that. And I've actually been doing that on the outside for almost 14 years as well. I've worked at Kaiser in Santa Rosa, and I worked at Merrill Specialty Surgery Center in Green Bay. So I did have a lot of experience going into this, which was fortunate because the other 3 soldiers that were with us didn't have a lot of experience. So we were a little nervous about that, getting out there and dealing with traumas right off the bat from the combat environment. But they ended up doing really, really well. They learned really quickly, and we ended up doing some really great things while we were out there. Some of the pictures that you're seeing right here, just since it's up there, we did lose one of our own soldiers. His name was Captain Joshua McClymans. He was one of the first nurses to actually be killed in the theater of Afghanistan. The The markings that you see on the wall are the rocks that came up from the mortar that hit him. It was a mortar that came from Pakistan, they said. That's what we believe where it came from. It landed right here. It actually took out pretty much the whole building, and he was unfortunately standing right next to where that landed. There was a lot of damage done to the buildings that we sleep in, and luckily nobody else was actually injured from this particular blast. One of the first experiences that I had when I was there, which was definitely an eye-opener, we got there and started working in the hospital probably late March. And we were still kind of trying to get our bearings and see like where everything was and figure out what instrument sets that we had and kind of figure out what was going on. And on April 3rd, we got hit with a mortar on our own FOB. And for those of you who don't know what a FOB is, it stands for Forward Operating Base, so that was FOB Salerno, as he was saying in my description. So we were hit with mortar fire, and one of the soldiers on our own FOB was actually injured very badly. He came into the hospital. We all had to rush in even though there was no clear sign given, and we were all just kind of running across the FOB knowing that there could be more rounds coming in. And by the time he got to us, he was internally bleeding a lot, and we had to bring him into the operating room right away. And it was probably the most eye-opening experience I've ever had. It was our first U.S. soldier that came through the door that was critically injured. And I spent 30 minutes personally massaging his heart, trying to keep him alive, and he did not make it. So that happened within 2 weeks of us starting, and it was a pretty big eye-opener for all of us as to what we could expect with what came in. So we actually were fortunate enough to be able to help more than just U.S. soldiers while we were there, which I'm very thankful for. We actually had a local national clinic in our hospital that saw anywhere from sometimes 2 or 3 patients a day up to 20, 25 patients a day, all local nationals who would come through the front gate. They would get screened by the military police out there. They would come into our hospital and we would treat them. And we provided a lot of care to those local nationals and trying to help them get the health care that they needed that they didn't have had it not been for us. We also treated, while we were there, Afghan National Army. We also treated their Afghan National Special Forces. And pretty much anybody that got injured within our vicinity could come through our doors. So we took care of anybody and everybody that we could. We had, just in the time that I was there, to give you guys kind of an idea, we had 462 surgeries come through our operating room, and that was in a little under 9 months. So we had a lot of stuff going on there. A lot of traumas, a lot of orthopedic surgery. The main thing that we would see would be IED blasts and the residual effects of that. A lot of convoy operations where people would run into mines and things would happen within the convoy. So a lot of destruction from that, a lot of stuff getting hurt. We definitely had the up-armored vehicles, and there's kind of a catch-22 with that, because when it goes big, and it's they can get stuck in the vehicles. If there's things attached to them, the vehicles do crazy things when they're up there. So we had a lot of that. Another thing that we dealt with at our FOB, which I think was kind of specific to us, was the location that we were at. There wasn't a lot of other hospitals in our vicinity, and our hospital had a morgue there. So we would get all of the KIAs that were within a certain radius of our hospital. So not only were we dealing with all of the casualties that came through just into our hospital, but all of the ones in the surrounding areas would come through us and get ready for transport to go to Germany or wherever their next location would be to come back to the States. So we saw, unfortunately, a lot more death than we thought I think we were going to. So it was probably one of the best and worst experiences of my life, to be honest. It was very motivating. I felt good for being there. Whether you believe in the cause or not, it was an unbelievable experience to be able to save people's lives, to be in there and to do what you could. Yes, ma'am.
What type of things did you do for the local people who weren't in the military?
We did pretty much whatever they needed. We had a lot of children come in. For some reason, I can't tell you why, but we did a lot of splenectomies. And so the children would come in with jaundice, and they would be, green and discolored and stuff and just not healthy. We would take their spleens out, and within a couple of weeks, these kids are running around the hospital and riding bikes through the hallways and stuff. So we did things like that. We had a lot of people come in with thyroid issues, or just little things like lipomas or even hernias, just smaller things, but pretty much anything that they had, we could take care of. We had things are a little different over there, so I guess you could say people get in arguments about different things, like over water. We had 2 families that decided to get in an argument over water, and used shovels and things of that nature to fight over the water that they had. So basically both families came in, and so we were treating both families, and it was so strange because they were right next to each other, and within 5 minutes they were fine. You know, whoever had the water got the water, and that was it. It was over, and they just moved on, even though they were all kind of sitting in there with bumps and bruises and cuts, and you know, who knows what happened while they were out there. But it was definitely a variety of things that we would deal with from the locals. But we took everybody in, and we did everything that we could that, you know, was anything that was possible. So a lot of stuff. Yes.
I'm sure that they, of course, appreciated all that you did, and they were happy that you were there for that. I was wondering if there was any way you knew of, what do they think about the military being there, about America being there?
Yeah, well, I guess we, you know, we don't go outside the wire being a combat hospital, so where we were was pretty safe when it comes to the security that we had. But the ones who came in were very thankful. They were happy that we were there. They knew that they couldn't be getting this care if we weren't there. But I can't honestly say that I know how they felt about us, you know, outside of that. So with all the people that we were there to help, they were very, very, very grateful. We had somebody that was there when we first got there. He was actually covered head to toe in burns. I want to say he was at least 60%, which usually we don't even take in our facility. But we did take him, and he did great. He was back on track. He was walking around. He was hanging out with us. He was laughing and, you know, learning English faster than we could pick up Pashto. It was kind of ridiculous. And he'd be like, "Hey, how's it going, dude?" You know, so it was fun. It was good to see, and the kids were amazing. And, you know, they're kind of, I guess you could say, naive to the situation, and they were happy if you gave them a coloring book. So they were like, "Whoa, USA!" You know, they didn't care. You know, the bikes and the toys, and they were happy. So it just kind of depended on who it was. But all of the parents were very, very, very grateful. And, you know, dealing with the women that would come in, there's a very, I mean, as you guys know, there's a lot of cultural differences that come to treating women and the stuff we can and can't do. So we were very respectful of that, and I think that they noticed that, and they were very thankful that we didn't, you know, only females could work with females, and if there was a male there, you have to talk to them first and ask them, you know, if it's okay, or tell them what you're doing. And we were very, I guess you could say, thankful that they were so cooperative with us as well, because we seem to have really good relationships with all of them. The nurses that I worked with were amazing, and they did wonderful, wonderful things with them. So I think we got lucky. Yeah.
If I was related to you and you were over there, and I knew that you were in the medical, and we ship boxes over there, can you accept bandages and tape?
Yeah.
They're sterile?
Yeah, absolutely. We can accept anything. We actually got a lot of donations while we were there. One of the operating room nurses that I work with, Captain Smith, he started a website called supportsalerno.org or operationsupportsalerno.org, and there were many companies that actually donated surgical mesh. They donated skin grafting materials for the people that would come in with the burns. And so we were able to use that on all the local nationals. There's a little bit of a difference between like looking at the expiration dates and things of that nature. We had femoral rods, tibia rods, all kinds of implants that we could use on them that we typically wouldn't be able to use on U.S. soldiers, and we were grateful to get anything. We got a lot of donations. Yeah.
Say like ointments, say catheters, say.
Yep, anything. I mean, we have kind of an abundance of stock when it comes to the military. They're definitely not afraid to spend money when it comes to the medical stuff. So we had everything we needed for the most part. But the specialty items, like I said, like the skin grafts and stuff like that, the high ticket items, I mean, we got probably $25,000 worth of skin grafting stuff donated from a company that was local to where Captain Smith actually lived, so, which was in the East Bay. So.
And is there a certain address or email, that a place that you can send it to, or do you have to have a person send it to?
From what I know, you have to have a person to send it to. I know that Captain Smith was working on expanding the Operation Support Salerno to kind of get it out there to people and let people see, because what it is we basically don't have a lot of communication back and forth. Like when I'm home, I could just call Stryker or call a medical company and say, "Hey, can you help us get this product?" We don't have that here. So any specialty items, it's kind of word of mouth is what we were dealing with over there.
Send it to you, and then you would put it into the unit.
Yes, yeah.
I had a lot, and I didn't realize that.
Did you have a question?
No, I was just waiting to Sarah.
Oh. Oh, and then just since you just said that, since Sarah's here, so you guys saw the pictures that were around here. Mike, who is the artist, is amazing, and he has these pictures from not only back in World War II, but all the way up until today with modern pictures, and we have them kind of put around to go with people that they're kind of like my case, for instance, is right there, and it's got a picture of the nurse, and then we've got the KIA right behind it. And then each one of these was done, like Jimmy Pera is a local soldier. I don't know if you guys know who he is. And then John Estrada, he's over here. We have a lot of the Marines here. And a first sergeant from another Marine company came over and did the whole case back there. So, and then Sarah, she wrote all of the descriptions that go underneath each image, which she works at the VA also, so she can use a lot of her experiences to help write these stories. And the stories are amazing if you guys get a chance to read them. They're very, very close to what we would think would be depicting in that picture. So,
What are your plans now?
my plans now, I volunteered for a mobilization to Fort Hood, Texas. So I'll be leaving for Texas at the end of February. And my job there will be an OCT, which stands for Observer Controller Trainer. And I will be there to help validate medical units that are deploying to Afghanistan so that I can use the experiences that I had to make sure that their OR techs are ready to go and get the training that they need to be prepared for what they're going to see when they get over there. And while I'm there, I hope to be studying for my LSATs, and then I'd like to get my law degree and commission to go into JAG. Hopefully. That's the plan. Is there any other questions?
Is Fort Hood where they now have all the medical training for, I know the Navy moved out of Great Lakes, and is it Fort Hood?
Most of our medical training is in Texas, but it's in San Antonio.
Oh,
So
San
Fort
Antonio.
Houston, yeah. But then all the medical units, like we used to deploy out of Fort Lewis, but now we're changing that to go to Fort Hood, more central location, so that everybody across the United States can go from one area.
Goes to one training center now.
Yeah, and then, like I said, oh, these are funny. Okay, so while we were over there, I was the MWR president, which stands for Morale, Welfare, and Recreation, and I did an Easter party, and this is some of the doctors actually that we work with, and he's got a counter on his head, and he had to bang his head like whoever could do it the most amount of time. So we're playing games. So, I mean, when you have the off time, you never really know when it's going to come. We were on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As you guys know, there's like no alcohol there or anything like that. You always have to be ready to go at any given point of the day. So we would do fun games and little get-togethers, and they stole my camera. We actually learned how to pretty much make anything out of a toaster oven. So we were baking and making little pizzas and cupcakes and all kinds of fun stuff out of there. So you get pretty creative while you're over there, just to kind of bring any little piece of home that you can out there. And my parents and all my friends would send me, like, little cake mixes and stuff so that we could make things like that. It's a C-130 landing on our airstrip, bringing in people. One of the water stations for the locals that they would use that we would bring out. We're looking at some x-rays. We had really, really, really good equipment while we were over there. We were very lucky. We had a CT scanner in our location. We were pretty much able to bring in some top-notch quality medical care to these guys, even though we were kind of out in the middle of nowhere. It was pretty amazing. That was a sunset. That's our main strip down the thing. That was Main Street, as we like to call it. Oh, there was like monsoons out there. It was crazy. It would be totally sunny, and you wouldn't know it was coming, and all of a sudden it would just pour down rain, and it would flood everywhere, and you were just bumming if you were outside because you would be soaked like a wet cat. It was crazy. Not expecting that. The weather out there where we were kind of in a valley, so if you took kind of Petaluma weather and maybe jumped it up about 15 to 20 degrees, it was like that all the time. So it was very mild. We didn't have like the 135 degrees like you might hear Matt had in Iraq. So that was Captain McClymonds' ceremony that we had for him, his memorial service. That's my job. I'm a surgical tech, and so we were setting up to do some cases out there. Yeah.
So what's the difference between this base and the one in Kandahar? My son was in Kandahar NATO Hospital, World 3.
So we are considered a World 2+, which means that we have surgical capabilities, and we had a CT scanner, but we were technically a treat and transport hospital. So we wouldn't do anything that would require like an implant on a U.S. soldier. We could do them on locals, but not for us. So there was a lot of regulations that we had to follow. We would transport them, we would stabilize them, and push them off to the next next role facility.
Would they
so
go to
like
Role 3 then?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And so from us, they would go to Bagram, and that would be our next role.
Okay.
But because Kandahar it's a lot more south, so that wasn't close enough for us. But Kandahar is also actually multinational, so they have different forces. We were an Army hospital, so we had 99% of it was Army, and then all U.S. of course. So,
he's Navy, but he went with the Army.
Right, yeah. And so we had a couple, we had an Air Force nurse that worked with us. She was fantastic. And they kind of attached us a couple people here and there. They kind of cherry pick, as we call it, put people where they need them. As Captain Soto, we did a passport. They never had passports on our fob, and so we got together and managed to somehow get everything we needed to get people passports on our fob, which was the first time it had ever been done there. So we got a little certificate of appreciation, little things like that. This is us removing patients off of the medevac helicopters. So we sent our own people out there. We did Christmas decorations while we were there, and this was our Christmas decorating crew. This is doing an orthopedic surgery with Colonel Swanson. We had a airfield right next to our hospital, so we had planes constantly coming in and out in helicopters. That was the flight line right there, and that's the entrance. This is the entrance to our hospital, so it was within a matter of probably like 20 meters at most that we were pulling patients off of helicopters. That was our flight line, so that was right next to us. Yeah.
This kind of reminds me of that television program called MASH. Was that kind of similar to a forward base?
That is exactly what it is. MASH is Mobile Army Surgical Hospital, and then it was changed shortly after that to a combat support hospital. So that's why we're a CASH now. But we're basically, that's just like a modern version of a MASH.
How many personnel did you have?
We had 45. And typically our unit out in Camp Park, we actually have over 300 soldiers in it. So we can completely set up and operate I think it's a 154 bed hospital. But here we only had 12. So it just was kind of like, what they needed for the area. Yeah. Those was our living quarters. That was the church that we had, which had services all the time and was always open for everybody anytime they needed it. Those were actually contracted helicopters. They look a little different than ours that would bring in supplies for the different contractors that were there. So there was always people coming in and out. Any other questions? Yeah.
When it flooded, did it flood inside the hospital, inside your
It got close a couple times, but
living quarters?
The living quarters were raised up a little bit, so we were a little safer there. But if you went outside, you were pooling in the water for sure. And in the hospital, it came in a little bit towards our EMT area. That was actually a shot. The one image of the water, that was a shot from our EMT area, so it was very close. But we managed to keep most of it out.
Were y'all ever attacked by ground forces while you were there?
We were not, but before that, I want to say it was about 6 months before we got there, they did actually have somebody breach the wire and come in and shoot up a lot of the buildings. Nobody was injured, and they were actually, taken out, but we did not experience that when we were there. We actually had the nickname of Rocket City. We received mortar fire from all different directions, I guess you could say, on a pretty regular basis. So never really, it's weird because it's like, when you prepare yourself, they train us to do all that stuff, even though we're medical. They train us to go into houses, and they train us to clear buildings, and they train us to be prepared during convoy operations for taking incoming fire or indirect or direct. And it's different though, because when you're just, walking from your room to say go to work, it's a matter of 20 feet. But in that 20 feet, you hear that hiss, and you're just like, you have no idea where it's coming from. You don't know if you should get down. You don't know if you should run. The first thing they tell you is to get down, but that might not help. You just don't know. It's a really weird feeling knowing that it could come from anywhere at any time. And you just have to hope you are not in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah.
It looked like you were eating
Oh, yes.
Non.
Yeah. We had a local restaurant on our fob, actually, that they set up. His name was Z. He actually came into our hospital for some treatment one time, so he took care of us really well when we went to the restaurant. And the guys that were in there were awesome. They were so nice. And the guy that makes the naan, actually, because I went there so often, the food was great, actually, believe it or not. So I would go in there and I'd give them all hugs and stuff, and he let me go back there and make the bread and put it in the stone oven and stuff like that. So we had some pretty cool experiences with that. And then if you look at my case, that top that was in there was actually given to me by one of the interpreters that we worked with in the hospital. It's a female Afghan top. And then I bought the shoes for my best friend who's here. I bought those for her. They were at the mart that they had out there, and they were handmade by somebody there. So, and then he also gave me, and one of the interpreters gave me a scarf that I have to bring home, just as a thanks. They were very grateful that we were there, a lot of the ones that we dealt with, so it was very reassuring that we were doing the right thing. Easter party. Yeah.
So how many of these bases are there compared, like the one in Kandahar is probably fairly large compared to this one?
Yeah.
This
So
is a small
Kandahar-
base.
Yeah, this is a smaller base. You know, I honestly don't know how many, but there's a lot. And
A lot.
even if there was a number, I probably couldn't say, so.
Okay, got it.
There was a lot of, like, we were kind of like a medium size, like Bagram was big, we were kind of medium, and then outlying from us, there was quite a few smaller ones too, but.
I mean, are we out in the middle of nowhere?
Kind of, you know, it was really funny though, where we were located, like, we used to go up on the top of our hospital, and we'd sit up there, and you could watch the sunset from up there and over the flight line, and it was so strange because it reminded me of home. It was really weird, because we were in a valley, so we had hills on all the sides, and so it totally reminded me of the hills of Petaluma. And then on our fob, they take, like, it's mostly dirt, but to cut down on the dust, they line the whole thing with gravel. So it was just loose gravel everywhere, except for like one main road that went around, like I showed you the main street. Oh, that was the mortar that actually hit right where Captain McClymonds was saying. It was a 188 millimeter mortar that came from Paxton. So
wow.
that was what was left of it. And we actually got lucky, sorry, just to go back. They said when EOD came out to get this and pull it out of the ground, it was about 6 feet deep into the ground. And they said that because it had landed on soft ground, we were actually really lucky because something of that size could take out like 50-meter kill radius, which is where all of our sleeping quarters was. Our hospital was within 30 meters of that, so it could have been a lot more devastating than it actually was. I mean, I don't want to say that because we did lose a soldier, but it could have taken out way more soldiers than it actually did. This is where we're doing jungle penetration training, so where they take you up into the helicopter and they drop down a harness, and then you have to get onto the harness, and you'll see some pictures where it looks like we're kind of floating up in the air there. So we got some, that's us standing out in the field waiting for the penetrator to come down. So then you drop down, and they picked us up when we were up probably like 100 feet up in the air. It was pretty cool. So we got to experience a lot of good stuff like that. But we were talking about
Forward operating bases, I forget now. It's okay. Sorry.
I don't remember either. So that was us up on the thing in the middle of nowhere, holding out for dear life, but having a good time. Yeah.
The personnel that you had on base, how many were actual surgeons, and was it at times necessary for non-surgical personnel to perform operations?
That's a good question. We had the standard personnel that we would have would be 3 general surgeons and 1 orthopod, and then we had 1 surgeon or ER doc in charge of all of them pretty much. He was called the DCCS, or she, and we never had anybody else have to do anything. We did have some physician's assistants and stuff that might come in and assist, but with the staff that we had, we always had somebody there. And like I said, we were on call, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so we never had to do that. We did have to, there was a picture in there, I'm not sure if when it came up, but there's a wall that we have out there. And it was a tradition started by the Liberty medics, who were 2 cycles before us. And we're the Dragon medics, and then the ones, or it was actually started by the Shamrock medics, I'm sorry. So the Liberty medics continued the tradition, and what they would do is when we would get patients in, each patient was, or each casualty that came in was categorized. And so if we had 1 patient, it would be like a Dragon red. If we had 2 patients white, 3 patients blue, and anything 4 or more would be considered a Dragon black. And so we had a wall that we would spray paint every time that we got a Dragon black, and when I left, we had already had 42. So that was 4 patients or more. We did receive 14 patients at one time, which in our circumstances would be considered a mass casualty, which is where pretty much everybody on the FOB who is available comes to the hospital for labor pool, and we delegate them to go do certain things that can help us out while we're trying to provide medical care for all of those patients. But we definitely seemed to manage everything that we had. I mean, we had to start surgeries while we were in the ER a few times just because of the severity of the patient that came in. But when it came down to it, we were able to manage with the patient load that we had, bringing the patients in and out of the OR very quickly, or getting them transported within a matter of hours.
Really imagine with 14 casualties like that coming in. You must have lost a lot of sleep at that time.
Yes, there were some definitely rough nights. I think the longest I was awake probably would be 48 hours. I'm doing stuff like that. Other than that, and then you get your downtime, but it's like you still got to go to work at 7 in the morning. You still got to get back up and get out there. And at any point, even when you're trying to get sleep, you can get called right back in. So we just really tried to manage our time and work with each other to say, okay, you need to go get a couple hours of sleep. I'll cover you, and then I'll come back in and let you go. So it was hard and it was tough. Like for 48 hours you're stuck in the hospital. We don't have, nutrition services in the hospital. You got to go to the chow hall, so we didn't have any food. So we have to try and send people out to go get us food and bring it back. And for 45 people, that's a lot of food. So we ended up, working with the chow hall, and they would bring us food down so that we could keep working throughout the night and just keep doing what we're doing.
So you were there 9 months, is that what you said?
That's correct, yeah.
When you left, was there a certain amount of separation and anxiety from your unit when you left?
Absolutely. I got sent home early, actually, and it was, they're downsizing, as people know, and in Afghanistan, not quite as much as Iraq, but a little bit is going on. And I was actually told that I only had about 24 hours to pack my stuff, and then I had to go home. And I was not happy about that, to say the least. So at first I was excited, and I was like really happy. I was like, oh my gosh, I get to go home. I'm going to see my family before Christmas. I might make it. I'm really excited. I get to get out of here. It was all. But then as soon as I got on the plane, I think is where it hit me that they were all still there. And I was the only one. And apparently after I left, like 5 or 6 more people actually did leave as well. But I was just one of the first to go. So that was really hard. And it's hard knowing that they're actually still there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a feeling of guilt almost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So are they trying to do their job without those other people, or are they being replaced?
I was not replaced, and
Okay.
the people that left were not replaced either. With the downsize that's happening, there was a lot of people who didn't necessarily agree with this because of all the patients that we saw. I mean, we saw, I don't know the exact number, so I don't want to misquote anything, but I'm pretty sure that with the local nationals and the clinic and everything that we had, we were into probably, the thousands of patients that we saw in our hospital. I mean, imagine just 462 surgeries, plus all the people who didn't have surgery. So we had a lot of people come through our doors, and they're actually downsizing our hospital to be from a full cash to 2 FSTs, which is a forward surgical team. So their primary focus is not even going to be, it went down from a role 2+ to just an FST, which I believe is a role 1 at that point. So they're treat and transport, and they're gone.
Okay.
So they lost our CT scanner. So I know that right now in the operating room, we had 2 surgical nurses and we had 4 techs. Right now they have 1 nurse and 2 techs. That's all that's left. Yeah. So, and I know they downsized the nurses. I think they sent 4 nurses somewhere else. So. there's
But
been
the
a lot of-
fighting around the area still continues at the same rate.
Yes.
That impresses me and surprises me.
Yeah.
We felt the same, to be honest with you. We definitely felt the same. We weren't quite sure what was happening, but unfortunately we don't have a lot to say.
Right.
Right.
We
Well,
didn't
that's
agree with it
surprising you
either.
didn't- that the airport military didn't come in there to protect you.
Yeah, we still had the same force protection, like, within the hospital we downsized, and I know that, but on the FOB we still had the same protection going on along the outside, so we were still good there. But I know within the hospital settings, and just within Task Force 44th Med, which is in charge of, actually there's Med East and, there's a bunch of different bases, but we were in Med East, and so within them, though, they're downsizing pretty much everywhere. And I'm not sure if it's because of a bigger drawdown that's coming that we're not, completely privy to, or we don't really know exactly what's going on. But the decisions were made way up here, and we're way down here, so we don't get all the details.
Do they hope to turn that over to the Iraqis?
We don't know. That's definitely a question that we thought, because there's a lot of equipment that we have there, and there was a Coast Provincial Hospital that was near us, and there's a picture in here actually with one of the local doctors who works at Coast Provincial Province, and he would come into our hospital and he would do surgeries with us, and we would teach him kind of like a fellowship or a residency, and he came to work with us, and he brought his medics, and we would teach them everything that we could, and they actually started right before I left a program with a lot of local medics to get them in and get them like CLS qualified and BLS and all of that stuff. So they were doing a lot of stuff with them right before I left to get them up to where they need to be to provide that patient care without us. But as far as the facility goes, I'm not sure. Yeah. Oh, this was this was actually a local who came in, and it was a gunshot wound to the head, and from the side, it entered on the side of his skull. It actually probably bounced around while it was in there, and it ended up landing right on the back of his head in between his skull and his skin. So you could actually feel the bullet that was there. It did a lot of damage, yes. No, he was, when he left us for higher care, he was, at that point, we were pretty sure he was brain dead. And I think he was actually Afghan National Army, if I remember correctly. Any other questions?
the young people that came in, the soldiers that actually weren't hit with anything, but mentally they were shook up.
Well, we were lucky. On our FOB, we had an MTBI clinic. So for anybody who came in,
What is that?
it's, ooh, I don't want to say the wrong thing. Do you remember? Yeah, I don't remember what the M is. Mild. Okay, there you go. So we had a clinic there specifically designed for that. So if someone would come in, for instance, who their convoy had been hit with an IED, and there wasn't any, physical injury per se, they would get a CAT scan right away, and then they would go to the MTBI clinic for at least 24 to 48 hours and get evaluated by an MTBI specialist who would determine what their next step would be in their treatment. So she was actually, I didn't get to go over there a lot, but she was great, and we had tons of people go over there, even if they didn't want to. And that was another thing, was that they don't think there's anything wrong with them, and they want to get back to their guys, and they want to get back to their team and get back out there and get in the fight, but they can't. So that's, I know, was something that she struggled with a lot, was them trying to cope with not being out there with their team. And I'm fine, just let me go, but they can't. So unfortunately, I didn't work with them that often, so I don't know exactly what they did with their treatment, but we definitely did not let them go. I know that. Yeah. Anything else? All right, so that was me. That was my combat support experience while I was in Afghanistan. We have Matt, who was on the other side of that, while also in Iraq as opposed to Afghanistan, so we thought it would be a good combo to have both of us talk so you can hear both sides of the story. So thank you everybody for coming out. I know there's 49 of you.
Where do I stop with that story, huh? That was a good story. I never really heard Afghanistan stories that often, because we kind of separate ourselves between the media war of Iraq and the media war of Afghanistan I'll tell you about. I was stationed, my little history, born in San Francisco, Presidio in 1982, so I am an Army brat. My dad is a veteran and was in the United States Air Force during the Cold War. Raised in Santa Rosa though, love this place, can never want to leave it for some dumb reason. Been all over the world. Let's see. Right now I'm studying political science. Everybody's like, you're a military guy, but being in the military showed me the difference. Showed me I got to travel the world, I got to see a lot of foreign countries and see the difference between what America is and why they view us the way they view us. And I can decide what's better for our country compared to other countries, is the way I look at it. Iraq. I decided to go in the Marine Corps after a little bit after September 11th. When September 11th happened, it was kind of I was back on the East Coast actually. No, excuse me, in the Central Valley going to school. Did a little traveling, but wasn't really going anywhere in life, so I decided, let's just join the military. Well, the only one open at 8 o'clock at night was the Marine Corps recruiting station. And let me tell you, he sat 3 things down to me, 3 tags. One said money, one said travel, and one said a lot of drinking. And at 18 or at 19 years old, I said, hey, whoa, those are the 3 things I love in life. I'm going to go for it. So I went for it. Little did I know the Marine Corps was the hardest branch. I had no idea what a drill instructor was. When I got to the airport, I learned really fast and really soon what the Marine Corps was all about. After that, during my boot camp days, there was a lot of talk. We noticed a lot of senators, a lot of congressmen were down in MCRD San Diego looking at us during my boot camp times, and kind of caught on that there was something big about to happen. That the war in Afghanistan was kind of cooling off, and it was time to go somewhere else. Our drill instructors would give us history lessons about the Marines a lot at night, which was really interesting because it gave us the hope and the courage to go into whatever we need to go into. And whatever situation was given to us, I think it helped out a lot. And the brotherhood there. The Marine Corps were really small. We all know each other. We don't all know each other. Some people in the crowd are in the Marine Corps than I was, Santa Rosa, but we never, different jobs. I went as an open contract. Open contract means either you become a cook or an infantryman. I didn't know that either. I was not good at cooking, so they went with the infantryman. Got through SOI, and then the war kicked off in Iraq. 3 months later, I was boots on ground in Iraq after training and stuff. 3 stages of the war, because I'll tell you there's 3 different stages of the war. The first stage we went in there, we had no idea what the heck was going on. Intelligence-wise, there was none, I would say, in Iraq. It was still in Afghanistan. All that we were looking for was Saddam Hussein. Is Saddam Hussein, I don't know if you guys knew, but there was a pilot that went down in the Persian Gulf War. He was the first pilot to go down. He's still missing in action. When we went in there, we got into one of Saddam's prison camps when we first invaded Iraq in about, so I would say, southwest of Baghdad. What we saw, what we reported back up to the chain of command was we saw his number and the last 4 of his social security number was there. And it was 2000, I think it was 2000, yeah, something 2003 he put I was here. So we knew at that point when we went to higher command that one of our MIAs from the Persian Gulf War could be still alive. And it was our duty to tell that family that still alive and we were going to go looking for him. My main goal was not really pursuing the enemy, was to find that POW. Came out to we could never find him. There's still word no today where he could have been. And we think that once Saddam was caught, his life probably ended. We don't know. No one knows. But it was one of the greatest accomplishments to find another hero, or try to find another hero. The Iraqi people in the beginning, pretty nice to us. I would say they were in between. They didn't know which way to go yet. Saddam was still alive. Saddam still had the secret police out there looking for people. And his sons were still alive. And that was the big deal. When I started talking to the Iraqi people the first time, it wasn't us they feared. According to Saddam Hussein, he would put on the airwaves, Marines, when they go to Marine boot camp, eat their firstborn child, are cannibals, and rape and pillage like the barbarians. So these people really feared us with the Marine, with their things. The job of us was kind of like no better friend, no worse enemy. We'll start talking to them, try to calm them down, not tell them stories that I'm not going to eat my firstborn child, so let everybody know here. You know, try to keep them all down, that we're not these vicious killers that want to go out and kill everything. It started to work a lot. What they feared was his sons. His sons were sadistic, were they were driving around in Ferraris while his people starved. And they'd kill a lot of his people. They killed his whole World Cup soccer team one year for not winning. These are the times we were dealing with. I saw a lot of the torture chambers, a lot of where they were torturing people because they were against Saddam. They wanted Americans there. But then you go down the street of South Baghdad, there's a Frito-Lay factory. There's a Levi Jean factory. There's a Toyota dealership. You're like, this is America, but backwards, you know? We used to call Little Tijuana South Baghdad, but cheap stuff, you know, American products. But once that was going on, now that was the first phase, and I was there the first time, 7, 8 months. Came back to camp, hit the ground running, back to training, straight up, different opposition now. Now it's an insurgent war. Now it's a 360-degree battlefield, which has never been seen before, in some ways, but you know, that's historians. The battlefield's changing. Now the army's dispersed now. Now the enemy is either the army's against you or they're with you. The army against you, not so scared of. So going back in, it was a different story. Now it was time to talk to people. Saddam was caught when I went back the second time. The people were totally different. It was, oh, we want this, we want electricity, we want water, we want, you know, we want schools and stuff. And that's what we started doing. Most of my job was to take children to school and stuff, but war started to change really quick and really fast. We started catching Iranians, started catching Chechens. A lot of Saudi Arabian, not Saudis, a lot of little bit of Kuwaitis, here and there, a lot of Pakistanians were there. But it wasn't the Iraqi people killing us. Some weren't, some weren't. I would say 95% of us wanted us there, 5% didn't, because it was a Sunni Shia population. The Sunnis were in charge with Saddam, and they dominated everything. So once Saddam fell, the Shiite came in and decided to take over what they wanted. And what they wanted was revenge for all the killings that Saddam's people did. Luckily, we kind of got a court system going and started teaching them that the court system is the way to go. Started civilizing them a little more than what they were as society. They started to get smarter. Not smarter, but the enemy started to find our what do you want to call it, our mishaps. They started to put IEDs inside Copenhagen cans of tobacco. They started intercepting our mail really early. We started finding out. And what they find in our packages is we like tobacco, you know, because we couldn't drink. You barely smoked as an infantryman because you get shot at night if they saw the cigarette. So they would stick the tobacco can in the ground and put an IED underneath it. So once you pulled the tobacco can up, it would blow up. So now they knew how to get to us that way. Well, that was cut off a week later. Now it was the American male will always drop his jaw for a female. What I mean is they would take a female, get her completely naked, run out in front of the convoy or the patrol we were doing, and have all of our jaws drop. Because we haven't seen a naked female for God knows how long. And then they would hit us with ambushes. So they were getting smarter, and it was like, okay, now we're not fighting cave dwellers anymore, or people that didn't have the weapons. They were getting smarter. They're finding our weaknesses. As the tour got on, it got more and more difficult. It was like, okay, you come after me, but a lot of times they go after the children I was with. I'd be walking kids to school and a sniper would take out the first child. They'd wait for a medic, usually our medic out there, to come to the child, and then they would take out the medic. Because they knew without the medic, like her job is, we'd be like chickens with their head cut off. Lucky with the training I got and how much training we had, it didn't bother. We were on top of it. A lot of people lived. A lot of Purple Hearts, but a lot of people lived. As it got deeper into the war, and the media started going away, it was kind of nice when the media went away, to be honest with you. The people started trusting us a lot more. Yeah, there was Abu Ghraib, which put a black mark on America and always will. But you can't, as we told the people, you can't take a bunch of bad apples like you guys had and tell it's a whole American society, because that's not us. There's a lot of more incidents that happened there, especially with the Marine Corps, Haditha, other shootings. But those were incidents that happened. War's ugly, and that's what people have to realize. As troops, we were lions led by lambs, I would say. Lambs would buy a lot of orders, excuse me, and we'd follow. And when we followed, some of us got smarter and stopped following. But all in all, it was pretty. The second tour was really good. I learned a lot. Learned how to be peaceful with people. Just learned a whole bunch about their culture too. I worked a lot with the Iraqi National Guard. You guys are awesome. Bob and Fred were the name. Because we couldn't call them by the real name because they were scared at that time. Which they're not scared anymore. They're getting bigger and bigger now. And awesome guys. Loved us to death. Taught them a lot of bad American culture, but they taught us a lot of good Iraqi culture. It was us. We were Americans, but it wasn't us there to please anybody. We weren't there to please the media. We weren't there to please I would say the sheiks, the hierarchy. For us, it was to please the little kids, the high schoolers, the college kids, because those are the ones that understand. And once we built the schools, the hospitals, their education would get better. And once your education gets better, they'd understand why we were really there. That it wasn't our fault. That we're just a bunch of backwards country boys wearing Marine Corps uniforms out in the middle of the desert where we didn't really want to be, in all honesty. But it became, just in society, I met a lot of good friends in Iraq and here, and it became there. Now, the third tour was really peaceful. Really, really, it was all humanitarian aid for Iraq. In between that, excuse me, let me go back. Also recorded humanitarian aid missions that really, really brought me home. When Sri Lanka got hit with the tsunami, which was a big one, we were the first platoon to go in there. Little did we know, in Sri Lanka alone, there's 550,000 landmines that were uprooted from the ground with the tsunami. They were all over the place. The Tigris rebels there is a Muslim group connected to Al-Qaeda, but Al-Qaeda actually follows their lead because they were the first ones to make suicide bombers. They were the first country. So we didn't know what we were up against. Little we know, there was no firefights, luckily. Nobody got hurt. The food got to the people, and we almost saved the whole country really fast. So that was the good part of the good part. I did humanitarian aid missions. My missions were a lot of counterterrorism in Africa because of Somalia. A lot of the pirate stuff came up. We were always on ready. The operations that were, if an American ship ever got captured, we were supposed to board the ship immediately and take it. So I was pulled out of Iraq a lot on that. The Marine Corps came to the conclusion is America's 911 force. We will be there in a heartbeat, and we will be there quick. And it was a privilege to be one of them. Now that I look back at it, I honestly believe we were the footprint. We were that footprint as the college kids that talked to the Iraqi kids, that taught them how to, what education was all about, how to be an American, how to speak your mind. We wouldn't see the uprisings in Libya. We wouldn't see the uprisings down going on in Saudi Arabia, Bahrain. It's our social network, Facebook too. Our American ways are now changing the whole Middle East for the good. And I also think if we didn't take out, I won't even call him a terror, I'm going to call him a dictator, or something else. Saddam Hussein, none of these other people would up against their own dictatorship because they know the United States will back them 100%. And now that I've learned and I've traveled the world, now I speak in groups and a couple of VA doctors here, and my parents are over here, and good friends over. My support system's huge. And my main thing is I want to talk is you don't see injuries on me. You don't see, I got my legs, got my hands, thank God, got my face. And there's a lot of guys out there that don't have that. But not all wounds are visible, as I want to say. And I hope when you guys read my stories and stuff today about the homecoming, and when she comes home, I hope it changes a lot more. There's a lot of help that needs to be out there. And I really conclude the Vietnam vets who came forward and picked me up and got me on my feet and told me to speak about my story. Go to the VA, work the system. If it wasn't for them, I don't know where I would be today. And tell me how proudly it was to serve my country on the Marine Corps. Because there's a lot of guys that came home and it was like, okay, a group of 6 guys, SEAL Team 6, a lot of my guys got mad about that because the media was like, oh, it's all about SEAL Team 6, the America's heroes. What about all of us that went to Afghanistan, Iraq, that did the groundwork, the footprint, to make it easier for everybody, you know? But that's all I have to say. That's my story. If you have any questions, though.
We're pulling out of Iraq. Do you think that the Shia and the Sunni, they've never gotten along, do you think they can handle it themselves now?
No.
So what do you think?
The guy that they need to figure out, Kurdistan above. I could go to Kurdistan without any armor, machine gun, anything, bulletproof vest. They treat me like royalty up there. The Kurds have a more peaceful state of mind. They want to be left alone. If we split that country into two, I think they would prosper a lot more. To be honest with you, it was the British that went in there back in the day, drew some lines in the sand, and said, "This is Kuwait. This is you know, they should go over and fix the problem."
And tell me about that too.
Oh, the infidel. The infidel. It was a group of guys of us that we were all called infidels, because we were the bad guys. You know, we were the drinking backwoods country boys that didn't believe in the Muslims, so they call us infidels. So I'll always remember it the day I die. Any other questions?
So the difference between the Iraqi war and the Afghan war, I know you weren't in Afghanistan, and I know that she was in the hospital, but as a Marine, what do you see as the difference, or what you hear as a difference?
Training. We were training in a lot of urban areas. We can't train here. There's no way you can take the oxygen in the mountainous areas. You can't. We'd all have to train in Colorado. What they're doing now with a lot of the pilots in Colorado and the Colorado Rockies, which I think is a great idea. But this is training. It was just easier to go in an urban area than go. And there's the border issue. If we're going to play by UN rules, we can't cross into Pakistan once they run over there, and that's the problem in Afghanistan, is they'll run back to Pakistan. And it's going to happen. I mean, we look at the Russians, fought them for 10 years and finally gave up. And they did a lot of dirt. I mean, I've read some of their books and talked to some of the guys, and they're not, you know, they tell us to fail. They got to do it on their own. But you got to look at Afghanistan too, big, huge area. You're going to have to take about half of our military force to go over there and fix what needs to be fixed. And who knows, it might happen.
Not in 2 more years.
Not 2 years, no. I'm not saying not in 2 years, but more training we get, the better we are. And the thing is the more educated, I would say the more educated soldier, Marine, seaman, airman would be the best ideal. I can't tell you more. My education here is maybe 10 times better civilian than I was in the military. If I knew this whole war about the Shia and the Sunnis, I'd have been a total better Marine. If I knew if I had history lessons about them and their cultures, we'd definitely been.
So you're not saying military training, you're saying cultural training.
Cultural training. Those people, for me, those people need an education. And that's the hard part. But as I look into other countries, as I've studied Sudan. And Sudan's been in war for years, now prospering because a lot of their kids came over here to University of Berkeley and learned to trade, learned how to put up power lines, learned. If we could take the Afghan people and spend some of this war money and ship them over here and teach them, boy, we'd change that country around so fast. It'd be unbelievable. It's all about education. Guns, no more.
Do you find that the people would be more educated in Iraq than they are in Afghanistan?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Very. They still have university there, and they have a lot of it. A lot of them are going back now. Now that it's slowing down to go teach, and that's the problem.
And they have better infrastructure too, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. It's hard. I mean, Afghanistan's been in war for so long.